Hello Year 7s and welcome to our next lesson on statistics. Today we're going to be looking at summarising data numerically. Now you would have noticed in the lesson log it says that there's a handout for today's lesson. I suggest you pause the video and print that handout, and then you know what notes you need to write and which notes you don't need to write if you've got access to a printer. So quick recap from what we did in our last lesson. We said that statistics involves collecting, organising and representing data. So we looked at data, two different types of data. So we said that there was numerical or quantitative data, which means it's data that contains numbers. And then we can have numerical data which is continuous, or numerical data which is discrete. Continuous numerical data generally, well, it means it can be any number, and most of the time it's something that's it's usually some sort of form of measurement. So if you're measuring a length, a weight, a time, that can take any number. So that's something that we would call continuous. Discrete is when it can only take certain numbers, and shoe size is a classic one because you can only have certain shoe size numbers. You can't just get any size shoe that you like. It's either an 8 or an 8.5, for example. Then we've got categorical or qualitative data. Categorical means that it can be split into categories, so it doesn't have numbers associated with it. We might do a survey of eye color. We could do a survey of hair color. We could do a survey of brand of car that your parents own, for example. So that would be categorical data. We then looked at different ways that we can have data with regards to collecting data. We can have primary data. Primary data means that it's data that I've collected or you've collected yourself. Secondary data means it's data that somebody else has collected and we can look at it or use it. Okay, so it's the difference between primary data and secondary data. We looked at collecting data in different ways. We can collect it using a census, which means everybody is included in the census. We can do a sample, which means we can pick a certain sample. If we were going to do a survey at school, we might only survey the year 10s, for example. That would be a sample. Or we could also have observation, which means that we haven't actually chosen the sample, but we're just observing and then collecting our data from those observations. So that's just a quick recap from last lesson. You don't need to copy any of this down. So today we're going to be looking at summarising numerical data by finding the range, the mean, the median and the mode. So this is only for data that contains numbers. Okay, so it's a numerical data. Now hopefully you've printed out the handout, which will save you having to copy this stuff down. But the first thing here is range. So the range is the difference between the lowest and the highest value. So we'll have a set of data that will generally contain some numbers in it, or will contain numbers in it. What we need to do is find the highest and the lowest values in that data, and then we subtract the lowest from the highest value. So in the example below, we've got our data set, and we can see in our data set here, we've actually highlighted that the lowest value is 2 and the highest value is 8. In order to calculate the range, we did the highest value subtract the lowest value, okay? And that gave us 6. So our range for this data, which means the spread of the data, how widely spread is it, is the range is actually 6. So you don't need to copy this down if you've got access to the handout. If you don't, I would like you to copy this into your workbook so you can pause. Moving on. So this is the mean. So the mean is the average. Sometimes we talk about the average. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about the mean. And the way that we go about calculating the mean for our data is that we add up all the values to find a total. And then we divide the total by the number of values that you have added together. So in the example below here, we've got all of our data, which we're adding up. There are 7 values. So once we've added up the data, in this case, we've got 32 is our total. We then divide by the number of data. We've got 7 data entries in this case here. So we would do 32 divided by 7. And as you can see, our mean can be a decimal value. Just be a little bit careful. Couple of things. You are allowed to use your calculator. So I'm expecting you to use your calculator actually. You don't need to calculate this manually. And you can have decimals. Just be careful when you're doing your maths-based tasks. It'll tell you sometimes how many decimal places, 1 or 2. If it's 1 decimal place, remember, if it's 5 or more, we raise the score. So remember, if we're doing our rounding of decimals, in this case here, if I had to round this mean to 1 decimal, it would be 4.6 because the number after the 5 is 7, so it's 5 or more, so I'd actually raise it up. So if you've got access to the print, you don't need to copy this, but for those that haven't, you need to pause and copy this into your workbooks. Okay, moving on. So now we've got the median. So we've looked at the range, the mean. The median is the middle value. And this is something that's really important when we're calculating the median. And that is that we have to put all the values in order. Okay, so we put it in ascending order from smallest to largest. Must do that. You cannot work out your median, and it's a common error that students do. They forget to put their data in order, and then they'll just pick their middle value, and that's not correct. So make sure that you place the values in order from smallest to largest, and then the median is the middle value. Now we can see down here, we've got our data from smallest to largest. We've got 3 data entries first. Our middle number here is 5, and there's 3 after it. So 5 is our median. There's no actual calculation in this particular example here. But the last dot point here says that if there are 2 values in the middle, find the mean of these 2. And I've put this little cloud here to help us. In this case up here, we've got 6 data entries. So we've got 6 data entries. There are 2 numbers that fall exactly in the middle. What we would do is add those 2 values up and then divide by 2. So our median in that case would be 3. So just be a little bit mindful. If there's an exact middle number, our median is quite easy. If there's 2 that happen to fall in the middle, so if it's an odd number of data or an even number of data means that we're going to have 2 middle numbers. That's when we need to add them together and divide by 2. So again, you can pause and copy this into your workbooks if you haven't got the printout. Moving on. So now we've got the mode. Now the mode is the most frequent value. Okay, the number that occurs or the value that occurs the most often. So again, the way we would do this, sometimes it's easier to put it in order, because once you've got the data in order, all of your numbers come together. If there's more than one, if there's, for example, below here, we've got 2 2s, they're right next to each other because we've put them in order, in ascending order. But the idea is with the mode is that we count how many of each value appears. The mode is the value that appears the most. Okay, now you can have more than one mode. In this particular example here, the 2 appears twice, the 5 appears twice, so they're both classified as modes. So our modes are 2 and 5, but you can have one mode. Okay, so if it's whatever value occurs the most often or most frequent. So you can pause and copy this into your workbooks. Moving on. So a couple of examples for us just to get ourselves up to speed. What am I expecting you to write in your workbooks? Well, I'm going to show you with these examples. So the first one says, find the range of the following set of scores. So we've got a bunch of scores here, and we just need to find the range. Now, if we remember, the range is the difference between the highest and the lowest values. So the way that I would go about doing this, if I was working in my workbook, is I would actually write down the question. Well, in this case, I'm just going to call it question 1. And I would go about, I'd select what is my lowest value. So I've got my lowest. In this case, my lowest value is 2. I'd then find the highest value. And my highest value in this case, if I have a look, is going to be 19. Now, if you remember, if we've got our handout beside us or our notes, we know that our range is going to equal the highest, take away the lowest. In this case here, we're going to have 19, which is our highest, take away 2, which is our lowest. So our range is 17. So that's our final answer there. That's what I'm expecting to see in your workbooks with regards to these questions. Example number 2. Find the mean of the following scores. So I have a quick look again at my handout, and I know that in order for me to calculate the mean, which is the average, I need to add up all of the values and then divide by the number of values that I have. So in this particular case here, I would actually be writing in my book that it's question 2. And I'd go ahead and add up all my values. Now I can put them in order. It's probably a little bit easier if I do 3 plus 5 plus 8 plus 9 plus 10. Now I would write this in my book. I can use my calculator to add all these up and it'll give me 35. Once I've added up all the values in order to find my mean, I then need to divide it. So how many scores do I have? In this case here, I've got 5. So we can just write the number of scores equals 5. So my mean is going to equal 35 divided by 5. And if we know our times tables, we can use our calculator if we're not certain. 7 5s are 35, so my mean is 7. So that's how we would do that question there. Example number 3, find the median of the following scores. So again, we need to remember, what do I need to do to find my median? Median is the middle score, but it's the middle score when the data is in order. So we're going to make sure the data is in order. In this particular case, the data is in order. So what would I write in my book? I would write question 3. I would put my data in. If it's not in order, the scores in this case it is, I would actually put it in order when I copy it into my book. So I've got 5, 6, 7, and 9. This is probably an easy one to find our median. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So our median is right in the middle, which is going to be 6. So all you need to do for this is write median equals 6. That's pretty easy. Example number 4. Find the median of 3, 4, 2, and 11. Leave your answer to one decimal place if necessary. So again, we've got to be a little bit careful. It's telling us to use one decimal place. So again, in order to find the median, we need to put our data in order from smallest to largest. So in my book, I would be writing question 4. And it would be 2, 3, 4, and 11. Now in this case here, because it's an even set of scores, we're going to have 2 middle numbers. So we've got 3 and we've got 4. So if you recall from your handout or from your notes, if we have 2, we need to add the values together. So our median, so we can add those together first. So we're going to have 3 plus 4 equals 7. And then we can say that our median is going to equal 7 divided by 2. Because we have 2 middle values, we add them together and divide by 2. So our final answer is going to be 3.5. Okay, so that's our median. It says to one decimal place, we've got it to one decimal place, so that's fine. So that's how we would be doing those ones there. I suggest you pause and copy these examples into your workbooks so that you know how to do them. Moving on. So now we're up to our next one. It says to find the mode of the following scores. Now again, mode is the number or value that occurs most often or most frequent score. Okay, so we just need to have a look at our data. Now again, if I was doing this in my book, I would be writing that it's question 5. I'd be writing all my scores. So I've got 3, 3, 3, 4, 9, 9, 9, 9. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've got to put one more 9. And then I've got the 10, 14, 19, and 19. Probably a good idea to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Especially when you need to order it, it's quite important that you do count to double check. We can already see 3 occurs 3 times, 4 occurs once, and we've got 9 occurs 5 times. So in this case here, we can see that the 9 is occurring the most often. That's the only one that occurs that many times. So our mode is 9 for this set of data. Number that occurs most frequently. Question 6, our last example. Again, so this one here, we need to find the mode. it doesn't necessarily need to be in order, but the way that I normally like to do it is to put it in order, because then you can see how many of the same score you have. So I'm just going to write it in order. 3, 3, 3, 6, 6, and then we've got 7, 7, 7, and 7, 10, 10, 10, 13, and 19, 19, and 19. So always good to do a double check. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So we know we've got the same number of data. So we're trying to find the mode. Mode means most frequent. Because it's ordered, it's quite easy to see. I've got 3 3s, 2 6s, 4 7s, 3 10s, 1 13, and 3. So it looks like my mode in this particular case is going to be my 7. So my answer here would be mode equals 7. And that's pretty much it. So maybe you can pause. You might want to copy a couple of these examples into your workbooks and then have a look at the assigned maths-based task. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. I'm more than happy to help. Thank you.